Hi, it's Brian. Welcome to the Awards Contender. I am back home from the Toronto Film Festival. What a week of cinema bliss that was. I had never been to the city. I had never been to the festival, of course. And it was something I'd wanted to do for many, many years. Last year I did Telluride. This year I did Toronto. And I just had a blast. It was incredible. I saw so many amazing movies, some disappointments, as I've talked about on the channel already. And moving forward, there is one more film I did think was a bit of a letdown I'm going to review in the days to come. But most of what I'm going to talk about the next few days are movies I went nuts for. Movies I really, really enjoyed. Not all of them are going to be Oscar contenders necessarily, but yeah, I have many more exciting TIFF titles to review for you. Let's start today with Saturday Night, which was one of my favorite films I saw throughout the week. I went into this one with very high expectations. I had heard great things out of the Telluride Film Festival, and this movie just looked to be my jam. I'm a big Saturday Night Live fan. I have always been very interested in the early years of the show. I want to say I've read at least one or two books about how the series got started. And so when I first heard about this film, that we're going to see the preparations that went into the very first episode, that first live recording of the series on October 11th, 1975, it's crazy to think we're almost at 50 years since that extraordinary moment that changed the television landscape forever in many ways. Jason Reitman coming on board as director was exciting. He hasn't had a lot of great films in the last decade, but his early work is so fantastic. I was like, it's time for another Jason Reitman gem. And I felt like, depending on how he was going to attack this story, this could be really special. And something he does very well right off the top is that he really does take himself out of it. He doesn't try to turn this movie into anything he's made before. You don't see signs of like Juno, young adults. You don't see signs of his dramatic work, really. He is in the background in this movie, letting the story unfold in such a beautiful, natural, compelling way all the way through. Saturday Night is one of the fastest movies I've seen in a while in terms of like it started and then it was over and I was like, wait, like that's a feature-length film? I feel like it's been on for maybe an hour. And I even tweeted and said like, that's the fastest 90-minute movie I've ever seen. And then someone told me, actually, it's an hour and 50 minutes. And I'm like, really? It's almost 2 hours long? I had to look it up myself, and it's true. Like, this does not feel an hour and 50 minutes. It is so confidently made, so well acted. There are so many wonderful actors in here, many of whom only get a few minutes to shine. You could look at Saturday Night as a collection of cameos from really talented actors, but I found that to be kind of the fun of this movie, that we don't spend too much time with any one supporting character. This movie is a fly-on-the-wall narrative that drops you into this specific time and place for a little bit, and then it's over and you're out. And the approach to this material, I thought, was perfection. This was the way to tell this story. It's the night of the taping of the first episode of SNL, and it's going live at 11:30. At least that's the plan. And the movie begins at 10 p.m. We have 90 minutes until the show is about to go on, and it works almost like a countdown movie. Like there is a sense of tension in Saturday Night that works really well. It's not a thriller. It's not the show 24. I get that. And of course we know the show did go on that night. That's not a mystery. But I admired the way Jason Reitman does bring to this movie an effective amount of tension that actually adds, I think, to the comedic moments, to the humor. You know that we're getting closer and closer to showtime, and as things keep going wrong, as there are moments where it looks like they're not going to be able to produce the show this night, maybe they'll try in another week, I found myself on the edge of my seat at all times, and a big part of that, I would say, is the cinematography, the roaming camera that takes us all around the studio, outside the studio. It's not like Birdman in that it's one long shot from beginning to end, where it's the illusion that we're watching all of this play out in real time. This movie has editing. Like, scenes are cut together, we cut over here, we cut over there. It's not Birdman, but the roaming camera gives this movie a dynamic energy that just draws you in from that opening scene all the way to the very satisfying final scene. Saturday Night has almost no missteps. Everything was done here with great care, with attention to detail. You really do feel like you're in that space in 1975. Jason Reitman shot this on 16mm. He said in the introduction to the screening at TIFF that was a little bit of a fight. Like Columbia, Sony, they didn't want him to shoot it on that film stock, but he said he needed 16mm to really bring this world to life, have it feel authentic, and it really does. And then there's the cast. Holy frickin' cow. The cast of Saturday Nights. This is one of the most impressive ensembles of actors we have had in a long time. I feel like if the best casting Oscar were going into effect now, Saturday Night could maybe win it. I'm kind of sad that best casting will not begin until 2026, recognizing the films of 2025. So Saturday Night just barely missed. That's too bad. But SAG Ensemble, I have to think, is looking good for this movie, at least for a nomination. Because there are so many wonderful actors in here. They're all playing real people, of course. And some of the people they're portraying in the movie, you will know, like Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd and the cast of SNL that first year. But there's also real-life characters you might not be as familiar with. Whatever the characters are, these actors are bringing it, starting with Gabriel LaBelle as Lorne Michaels. He is really our viewpoint into this story. He's really the only character in Saturday Night that gets a lot of screen time and a lot of substance. Like most of the characters we only see here and there, but Lorne Michaels, Gabriel LaBelle as Lorne Michaels, is all over this movie. And what an incredibly appealing actor Gabriel LaBelle is. I found that to be the case in The Fabelmans. I found that to be the case in Snack Shack from earlier this year. And now we have his performance in Saturday Nights, which I don't really think will be like an Oscar contender kind of performance. I don't think Saturday Night is going to be a big Oscar player, but he gives a very good performance in this. I was so relieved that he doesn't try to do a Lorne Michaels impression. I thought there was going to be a lot of the lip thing, and he was going to try to voice, Dr. Evil in Austin Powers, right? Which I believe was a takeoff of Lorne Michaels, Mike Myers impersonating his former boss. That's not what we get from Gabriel LaBelle in this movie. He really does make the character his own, and you want to follow his journey all the way through. He has this drive, this passion to bring this show to life, to the world, and we want it to happen for him. And especially in those last few minutes, you are just really on his side. You are rooting for him, and I really dug his performance. He was the right actor to play a young Lorne Michaels. He is the necessary glue that holds together the entire story. And I can't wait to see what this actor does next. I don't think he can get an Oscar nomination for Saturday Night, but I do think this would be inspired. I think Gabriel LaBelle should get a Golden Globe nomination in Best Actor in a musical or comedy. I think that could happen if there's enough support for Saturday Night moving into like December, January, I think he can get the Golden Globe nom, and it would be well deserved. And then so many standouts in that supporting cast. Again, I think nobody's in the movie enough to really like get into the best supporting actor Oscar category. That's not going to happen for this movie. But there are some memorable performances. I would definitely say that Dylan O'Brien is a standout as Dan Aykroyd. He is hilarious in this movie, and he does kind of look like a young Dan Aykroyd in the way they made him up, in his mannerisms. That's really effective. Matthew Rhys is a riot as George Carlin. That was amazing. I loved him in this. Willem Dafoe is excellent as one of the higher-ups at NBC who's doubting this new show, and he has some wonderful moments with LaBelle. He's very intimidating, having just made that Elusive Oscar video about Willem Dafoe. It was really fun to see him in this kind of role, to see him really break out in this large ensemble cast. But I have to say, my favorite supporting performance in the movie has to be J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle. That was an inspired piece of casting. He is so believable as that famous comedian. Like, he dances in moments. He's got this one magical scene where he tells off Chevy Chase that just had me in stitches. It's so funny. Personally, for me, I think J.K. Simmons in Saturday Night gives a much better performance than he did in Being the Ricardos, which got him an Oscar nomination. So do with that what you will. But overall, everybody's great. There is no weak link in this movie. In terms of the actors, like, everybody is doing solid work in this, even if they only have like 1 minute of screen time, 2 minutes. They make their moments count. And with the beautiful level of craft on display, the fast pacing, the confident filmmaking, these wonderful actors, if you're a fan of SNL, especially those early days, you are going to love this movie the way I did. It is such a pleasure all the way through. Now, I know I said this isn't much of an Oscar movie. I don't see it getting any acting nominations. Like, even though LaBelle could get in at Golden Globes, I do think the film gets into SAG Ensemble. When it comes to the Oscars, I do think the film overall is strong enough. Like, if enough people really, really, really love this the way I did, I could see it pulling a Women Talking and get into Best Picture and Best Screenplay. I'm not sure if it's adapted or original. It's based on real people, but I don't think it's based on like a specific book or anything. So it could go either way. But yeah, I feel like we might be underestimating Saturday Night's appeal a little bit to awards voters, like having it be real people, a real time and place. It's got a good release date of mid-October, and depending on how well the movie does at the box office, how much the critics love it, like, we could see Saturday Night getting in at the Oscars. It's not gonna overperform, but I could see it getting that 10th place Best Picture slot and also getting in to Screenplay. Like, it's definitely one of the films I saw at TIFF I could see myself watching over and over again. I want to put the Blu-ray over on that shelf and be able to watch it anytime I want because, again, it's a very fast watch. It flies by, it's so much fun, it's smart, it's inventive, it's hilarious, well acted, beautifully made from beginning to end. I really dug this one, and I do think it's one of the top 10 films of 2024. I give Saturday Night a very enthusiastic 9 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and I will be, of course, back with many more reviews from the Toronto Film Festival. We'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.